Thank you for joining us on this short introduction video. We are Impact, a global, independent, non-profit association supported by leading banks, aircraft lessors, investors, law and accounting firms and academic institutions. As a platform, we work together to advance aviation's transition to net zero. New fuels, new technologies, new infrastructure, and many stakeholders who must move forward together. By convening finance and industry stakeholders, we help navigate the complexity of aviation's decarbonisation and develop practical tools, such as the Milestone Concept, a simple, transparent framework to measure real decarbonisation progress. The concept enables airlines, lessors, investors and lenders alike to assess the decarbonisation progress of their fleet and aviation portfolios, respectively. Let us now turn to the fundamental question: how do we measure real progress? The answer to that is the scientifically vetted milestones concept, an approach that evaluates how far and how fast airlines go in reducing their CO2 emissions on a relative and absolute basis, particularly as they grow their business. Our approach accepts that every airline is different, and not all will start their decarbonisation journey at the same time and with the same capabilities. This is why Impact does not seek to benchmark the emissions of, for example, all aviation borrowers at a single point in time, but rather it proposes rewards for achievements as soon as they happen. The earlier, the better. The concept can also be applied to the aviation portfolio of a lessor, an investor, or a lender. We'll talk more about this later. The milestone concept rewards progress in the decoupling of an airline's absolute CO2 emissions from its capacity evolution. Only two figures must be taken into account: the percentage change in CO2 and the percentage change in capacity. And that can be measured using ASK, ATK, RPK or RTK, both relative to a base year, which we suggest to be 2019. Then, by plotting these percentage changes into a simple matrix, we obtain a score, which becomes the milestone. The matrix is valid unchanged until 2050. There's no need for unreliable forecasts or for assumptions about the availability of SAF. It doesn't get much simpler, more accurate or more effective than that. The heart of the milestone concept is the simplified matrix we just looked at. For this matrix to remain unchanged until 2050, we need to give it three additional properties. First, a higher resolution. The proposed 16 by 16 matrix retains simplicity, but makes it possible to detect progress early and sensitivity. Second, the airline growth is rewarded up to 100% compared to 2019, but no further beyond that. This ensures growth is not rewarded just for its own sake. And thirdly, we freeze the amount of credits achievable by airlines without genuine decarbonisation in 2035. And this is done on the assumption that sufficient quantities of SAF and technological carbon removal will be available then. From 2035, improvements of scores are subject to achieving absolute CO2 reductions versus the base year 2019. Net zero can only be achieved if an airline actually reduces its CO2 emissions, otherwise known as absolute decoupling of CO2 emissions and traffic growth. The milestone concept can also be easily applied to aircraft portfolios of lessors, investors or lenders. The milestone score of a portfolio is determined by aggregating the data for all individual assets. The process works as follows. The CO2 emissions and capacity of each aircraft in the portfolio are added up for the year of calculation and the base year, before calculating the relative change of CO2 emissions and capacity, plotting it into the matrix, and then deriving the milestone score. The concept considers the decarbonisation progress of the operators in the lessor's portfolio. If Airline A operates the same aircraft more efficiently than Airline B, for example by higher SAF use, the results for the aircraft of Airline A will reflect this. Consequently, a lessor will be rewarded in the milestone concept if it transitions to more efficient aircraft, as well as placing those assets with more efficient operators. The attractiveness of the milestone method lies in the following key properties. Simplicity, requiring only two readily available data points per calendar year. Flexibility. Depending on data availability, different capacity metrics such as ASK, ATK, ARSK, and RTK can be applied. provided they're used consistently. Effectiveness, measuring what needs to be measured. In other words, progress towards decarbonisation. And also integrity. The milestones are designed to minimise the risk of greenwashing. For more detailed guidance on the implementation of the milestone concept into loan and lease agreements, we kindly refer you to the Practitioner's Guide, which is available on Impact's webpage, and you can find this in the section Resources, Milestone Concept Files. Alternatively, accessed via the QR code. Over 30 institutions, representing some of the largest aviation finance stakeholders in the world, collaborated to design Impact's milestone concept, and we are proud of their ambition and their desire to join forces. We now need to look beyond the financial sector to understand and to accommodate the reporting needs of airlines, of lessors, and of other aviation borrowers. Get in touch and help us to refine our methodology to help you.